Right. All right, welcome. Well, Jeannine, I am so excited you agreed to be part of this certification as an expert interview. We met on a summit, and it's like we're sisters from other mothers because we hit it off right away. And I want you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to dive right into the topic of an article that you wrote, "My Black is Beautiful." And I want to say, I think this is such an important topic. And you asked, you sent me the article and like, how do you feel about talking about this? And I'm like, let's do this.
All right, let's
So
do
tell
this.
everybody about yourself.
Well, I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Of course, you all know my name is Jeannine Rivers-Colburn. So I am a mental health wellness coach, a three-time best-selling author, um, a professional musician, and I always like to tell people I'm a suicide attempt survivor too.
I,
So
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I consider myself a lived experience expert.
Mm. Well, it's so interesting you talk about being a suicide survivor. How do you say it?
A suicide attempt
Suicide
survivor.
attempt survivor, especially. I think this topic we're going to talk about, "My Black is Beautiful," is so timely because at the time we're airing this, we just had the interview with Meghan Markle and Prince
Ah,
Harry, and she reached out for help to him and said, but she was thinking about basically taking her own life. She felt that oppressed. And I just think it's a great topic, especially in certification, because I think people's sensitivity to this is so
yes.
important. And you might be working with someone who is experiencing racism, or you're around people that are racist. And I'm so happy that you suggested this topic. And I'm going to let you take over here, but we talked earlier and I was telling Jeannine, I really, this Black Lives Matter movement, the whole COVID thing for me has always been a bit like, I'm conscientious, but it's not something I've been afraid of. I've never even been afraid of getting it myself, but I'm conscientious to the population that is sensitive. But the Black Lives Matter movement, when that hit, it's been a highly emotional thing for me.
Yeah.
And um, I think what I witnessed in the interview with Meghan Markle and them was absolutely racism. And it's because when they made the comparisons of her and Kate, and, with the avocado and the baby bump and how they spun it, like, Kate's holding her baby bump because she's loving on her baby. Megan's obsessed with her baby bump. Kate eats avocados. She's doing something healthy for the baby. Megan is contributing to economic and environmental disaster. And
Hmm.
I'm sorry, my opinion is that happens because she's half black.
Huh, yes.
And I think, and even I was telling Jeannine when we were talking, my husband is the one that woke me up to my own sense of whiteness, because when I put my website together, I grew up in an all white neighborhood. I went to a high school that was a more intermixed, which was really good for me. It really woke me up in a lot of ways. But still, as a white person, we've talked about white privilege.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter woke me up to my own white privilege. And so my husband's the one's like, Mart, your website, like my original website had different people. He's like, they're all white. And I was like, oh my God, right? I had no diversity. And even in this certification with the experts, I absolutely have had diversity because I feel like there's so many voices that matter, but my own upbringing limited me in that way from seeing that. And I'm so grateful that you and I can have this very open and honest conversation. So,
It makes me feel good too. It really does. It's a touchy subject. It's
oh, yeah.
especially, if when you have friends, one is opposite, one is white, one is black. It's some people you can't discuss this with. So I'm very happy
Yes.
that you
Yes.
feel comfortable discussing it.
Yeah, and I think it's true even on both sides. We can have our own issues even within our own, let's call them races, where it's like, oh, that's interesting. And what I've experienced, even there's there's been people in my world, I'm literally like, how it's just blown my mind that they don't see certain acts as racist. And I'm just like, I literally cannot wrap my mind around like how, I have to tap on that.
Oh, I love that.
So why
Love.
don't you talk about your experience in this article, "My Black is Beautiful," that you wrote? I read it. You send it to me, and it's funny. I'd watched the movie Selma, and I mean, such an emotional movie. I remember watching Roots when I was a kid, and it really is good and so important for us to wake up, and even in this certification program, to be
Mhm.
conscious of who are you marketing to, and
Yes.
are you diversifying in your marketing? Does your website reflect that? Do I just think this is, and I'm also going to say this, I feel an onus as a white person to be someone to really put this message out there, because
Yes.
I do feel, unfortunately, it's heard at times more white person to white person than a black person that's trying to explain to a white person that might not be even remotely awake what they experience.
Right.
So I would love for you to share your experiences around this.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've been doing a lot of reflecting. My mom died in November, and then my dad is 87. And there are a lot of things that I wanted to understand about how I grew up. And I said, well, I have to ask him. So when it came time for me to write my article, and with everything that was going on in the world, it really affected me in a good way and a negative way. And
Mm,
more so that everything that was going on when I was watching TV, when I had questions. And then I came to realize I couldn't relate. I couldn't
mm,
relate to the feelings and the emotions. I could relate to a certain extent, but not fully. When I was watching, I couldn't fully understand the anger. I couldn't fully understand the prejudice and the racism. I wasn't feeling it the way that I wanted to, Marty. I wasn't feeling it. So that really, really bothered me.
mm,
So I had to have a conversation with my dad because I had always wondered, why didn't I have the Black experience growing up the way
mm,
that other people had? Why didn't I have that experience? Why didn't I understand? And then so I asked him, I said, why? I would like to know why. And I was angry when I asked him. I was really irritated. And I said, I would like to know why my whole environment has been basically white.
mm,
And he looked at me, he said, what do you mean? I said, I always, we were probably there was probably only two Black families in the neighborhood wherever we moved. So all my friends, of course, in the neighborhood were white. I went to a predominantly white school, maybe 10% African American. The church that we went to, 80%, 85% to 90% white.
mhm,
And I caught a lot of flack from different people who I say blessed and fortunate enough to be raised in the inner city, because they understood. And so they would always tell me, Jeannine, you're so white. And I would like, that's what they would tell me. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to be? My dad, right, when I was growing up, color was never spoken about in our family.
mm,
You're like everyone else. You could have anything that anybody else has if you work hard with it. That's just what he instilled in me. And then Black Lives Matter happened.
mm,
And I was talking to a really good friend of mine, and and who happens to be white. She's known me since I was 15, and we were talking. And I always ask her questions that I don't understand. I always tell her she's more Black than I am because she totally gets it. And she was talking about white privilege. And I
yeah.
looked at her. I was like looking at her. And then she said, what's wrong? I'm like, what is white privilege?
Mm,
Oh, Jeannine. I'm like, some people call it white skin privilege, because if
mm,
you're a Black person and you're lighter, you get treated a little differently because they may not know what you are. And
Yeah.
so then she began to explain to me. She said, when I was born in this world, it was automatic that I was going to get things based on my color. She said, you, on the other hand,
Yeah.
were born Black, and automatically things were different for you.
Yeah.
And so me and her debated that. I says, well, I said, I've never had that problem. I was really dumb enough to think that. And then she she kind of chuckled. She said, you don't ever think that that you have been discriminated against or treated differently? So she gave me some examples, and I was like, oh, wow. And I'm like, okay. And then I start getting it. And then I start getting it. And then I had a few issues because, in this world now, you know, based on, I won't mention any names, but based on certain people, it was okay to express how you feel. It was like,
Oh,
let's do it.
racism got normalized again.
Yeah,
I
it got
mean,
normalized.
yeah.
And so I really began to see the difference. And then with interactions with people, and then I said, well, Jeannine, you don't know if that person is having a bad day. They could just be having a bad day. And then I'm like, no, they don't like me
Yeah.
because of my color. So then I start paying attention more, and I can honestly say, I get it.
Yeah.
At 57 years old, I get it.
Yeah. You know, it's
Mhm.
interesting. We lived in Taos, New Mexico, and I actually experienced racism up there. I was called a effing güera blonde many times by the older segment of the Hispanic population up there. And it was fascinating. In certain part segments of northern New Mexico, I don't find that in where I live here in around the Albuquerque area, and I'm in a town called Placitas now. I don't find that. Everybody. It's really sort of this, in so many ways, a melting pot. But I will tell you, Jeannine, that was a fascinating experience for me because I was like, oh my God, this is what it's like for
Huh.
people to hate you just because of
Right.
how you look. And my husband would be the first to tell you, oh my God, Mart, you got it all the time. We had pulled up to a stop, a four-way stop. I was about to roll through it and I stopped and I waved the car going on and the car turned in front of me. And then I got this. And he's like, Jesus, I had tried to hit my dog once. I was walking on the road with her. I had to get her out of the way. I was pulling over I was going to go see my girlfriend in what's called Ranchos. And I
Huh.
had gotten all the way over this one lane bridge and this
Wow.
truck stopped and would not move. And I had to, and
Scary.
I was like, yeah, this isn't safe. I had to back all the way over the bridge and let him pass. And I will tell you, that was profound because it just
Wow.
woke me up to, oh my God, that's so interesting. And it just it does boggle the mind on some
Yeah,
level,
it does.
that and and we all know hatred is learned. We don't come in racist. It's a
Thank you.
learned thing. And ironically and unfortunately, the people that practice that believe that what they're doing is the right thing to do.
Yes, yes, yes. It's sad. It's sad, but I you know I just had this conversation with my dad the other day again because he didn't know I wrote the article. And
Mm,
I said, Dad, I dedicated that article to you. And so, he and I were talking. I told him, I said, at first I was really angry at you. I said, but now I get it because I kind of chuckle. Marty, I raised my daughter the same way. I raised her the same way. That's
of
what I
course you
knew.
would. Yeah,
Right.
right. That's what we know. Yep.
Right. So, my dad, I think about this. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech meant so much to him at the age of 30 when he heard it.
Mhm.
He's 87, and
Wow.
he told me, watching TV and everything that's happening is just like watching it back in 1963. He said the only difference is they're not water hosing anybody down. he says, but they're doing even more awful things. He said, he said, it's all the same. He said, it's all the same thing. He said, really sad. He said, really, really sad. So I asked him this one question. I said, Dad, do you ever think that it's going to get better? Are my grandkids, if I have any, are they going to go through the same thing? I said, what do you think? This was his answer to me. He said, no. I said, you really don't think it'll get better? He goes, nope. He says,
Mhm.
because now you're getting a whole new generation of people that are being born with people that are not afraid to say how they're feeling, and they're going to embed it into their children.
Mm.
And I'm like, interesting perspective. In a lot of ways, I disagree with him,
Yeah.
but I think he's just like fed up, you
Yeah,
know.
why wouldn't he be 87 years on the planet? And I mean, he's got a lot of momentum going to prove to him that that's not the case. It's really interesting. Not that, I mean, I follow different people and one woman is what's called evolutionary astrology. And I see, and she's a message of hope. And what she says is happening, that we literally are headed into the age of Aquarius. And I've listened to a number of people, like one guy named Zach Bush says, this is what an empire looks like when it's about to crumble, is all
Ooh,
the bad stuff just rises to the surface. People fight harder to maintain the status quo, and then it falls away. But everyone that I have followed, to me, and I love this message of hope, is we are headed towards, it's going to be a while, it might be, say, 10 years, where we start to see more equanimity, and the ugliness needs to come to the surface to melt away. Now, will there always be people that believe that? Absolutely.
right.
But the other thing that I've seen is, when I saw it during the Black Lives Matter movement, you saw all these young white
Yeah.
people
Yes.
that were standing up for this, which I mean, you saw some of that back in 63,
But
but
not like
it
now.
not like now. And I
Right.
think that is a generation that sees it, they're like, wait, what's going on here? They're looking at what's happening, not, of course, not every single kid. There's the kids that are raised to be hateful
Right.
and to believe that, it's right. And a gal that I went to high school today, we were connecting on Facebook. We were talking about the Meghan Markle interview. She said it the best way. I saw an excerpt from Oprah yesterday morning after the interview on CBS, and Meghan Markle was asked to be 50% herself before she entered into the marriage with, could you just not be 50% less you? And at first I thought, like, oh my, I literally thought at first, like, oh my God, because she's a very gregarious, but
Mhm.
like wonderful human being. I've always liked her.
Right.
And to ask anybody to be 50% the less of, and then all of a sudden, Jeannine, it dawned on me, oh my God, I bet what they were actually saying is, just be the white half of you. Just
Yes.
be the white half. Don't be the black half. And my friend that I went to high school with, she said something like, yeah, imagine them asking her to be 50% of what God created her to be. And the
That's
way she
powerful.
said that, it's so powerful, because it's like,
Yes.
wait a minute. Right, God made you this way, but then there's people on the, like, I really got me thinking, like, where is God in all this for those people? Do they think that I'm sure, because I grew up with a white Jesus. Every church I went to, and I finally woke up to, and Joseph was white, Mary was white, God was white. And when you finally start to wake up and you're like, Jesus would be stopped in
Yes.
immigration now.
Wow. That is powerful.
Yeah, and then I'm like,
Wow.
"What?" Like, you start to wake up from the programming that you have as a white person, that you're constantly fed everything, everyone's white, Jesus, you're like, Jesus was from, there's no way he was white.
I have a friend that has a t-shirt, and this is interesting. You know what it says?
No.
It says, Jesus was a black unarmed man. And
Oh,
I'm like, ooh,
whoa,
Jesus was
whoa.
a black unarmed man.
Wow,
And I'm like,
wow.
That's powerful too.
That is really and it's true. Right, like Martin Luther King, spoke
Right.
love unarmed. He always took that path. I mean, and we, obviously people got beaten viciously
Yes.
by white police officers. And yeah, it's just fascinating when you continue to
Right.
see the one my belief and hope about Black Lives Matter, because I've heard white people say all lives matter. And I'm like, oh my God, of course we all
Very
freaking
offensive.
know. Yeah,
Very
we
offensive.
all freaking know all lives matter. We wouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter if there was true equanimity. I mean,
Yeah.
think about the Meghan Markle, Kate, thing. It's like, there it is. Avocados, Kate's trying to nourish her baby. Meghan Markle, she's contributing to, global decimation. We would never need to say Black Lives Matter if that was not the case. So then I think a white person is ignorant and they're not seeing what's really happening.
Right.
If they're like, oh, come on, all lives, like, duh, of course, all lives matter.
Right. You know, I remember when I first heard the All Lives Matter. This is this is what I said to myself. Well, that's true. I said, but Black Lives Matter. So what really brought it home for me, how when a white person, and even a Black person, but when a white person says to me, um, Jeannine, all lives matter.
Oh, like, Lord.
So what they're saying is they're dismissing it and demeaning that Black Lives Matter, because just think, when a person has cancer, they go, I have cancer. You don't say to them, oh, all people have cancer.
That is a great
About that.
analogy, right?
All people, oh, how all, so basically, all, uh, all lives matter,
Yeah,
as if my Black life doesn't matter. You know,
right.
you tell that person who has cancer, oh,
Yeah,
oh, a lot of people have cancer.
and Janine, that's like, think of a white person. Like, I can drive on any highway and I can drive through. I mean, there's places in New Mexico I'd be like, oh, okay, that's a little different, but whatever.
Right,
So
right,
I'm aware of that. But for the most part in my life, I can drive anywhere in this country and have a sense of, I mean, other than the woman part, so we'll put that aside, but to
right.
go, I'm not going to get pulled over because of how I look.
Ha.
And anyone that doesn't see that is, they're just not awake in that way. And
Right,
that's just how I feel about it. You've probably not had a conversation with someone that's had to deal with that, to know that, if I drive through that area, there's a good chance this is going to happen. And I thought when Black Lives Matter, that specific, when it first came into being, and those young men that were gunned down, a white person can run, jog down the road. They can even have a hoodie up, and,
yes,
and they don't have to worry about it. And
yep,
and that's the type of stuff where it's like, you talk about something getting lost in translation, is to
yes,
not be able to step in someone else's shoes and go, holy crap. That's
right,
got to
right.
be an experience to know, if I run down that street, this could happen to me.
It's scary. It's
It's
scary.
very scary. And you went to a few of the marches.
Well, we went to a lot of the marches. Well, my
Yes.
husband goes to marches for everything. He's always bouncing around with causes, but the Black Lives Matter, there was power in that. There
Yeah.
was such power, especially when they marched through the suburbs. Ooh, 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 that's bravery. They took over neighborhoods in the suburbs where it was I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. I was
Yeah.
like, because the
Right.
boldness of them to do it
Right.
was like, wow. It was wow. So let me
Yeah.
tell you experience where I live in a suburb, And the Black Lives Matter movement decided they would come down the main street. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. My husband and I are sitting in the car, and we were on the corner, and this lady comes up. I mean, I was just shocked. She comes up to the car and she talks to my husband, and I'm sitting right beside him. And she tells him, "Oh, isn't this just horrible? I mean, I think this is awful. George Floyd is not the only person that has died at the hands of the police. What about the white people?" I'm sitting right behind my husband, and my husband is white. And she says this to him like I'm nobody. My husband reamed her one.
Oh, good for
He
him.
reamed her one. And then he told her, "Don't you see my wife sitting right here?" Well, she probably didn't think we were married.
Right, right, right. Oh my God,
Oh,
right?
but oh, Marty, you should have seen. They had their signs. They were driving in cars. The little kids were hanging out the window. Black Lives Matter. I'm like, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's so awesome.
It was very refreshing for me to see that.
Yeah, and the same thing, obviously, with your husband, it really, I do agree. I think as a white person, your voice carries more weight with other whites.
Yes,
It's unfortunate that it's
yes,
that way, but I have
yes,
heard so many black people say, you have this power here that you can help get the message across in a
right,
way that is so important, and I so agree with that. And
right.
and I do think Martin Luther King talked about, like good men doing nothing. I
Huh,
think this idea that we can be like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. It's too much. I'm not, I'd feel
yeah,
overwhelmed by it. I think to learn, like, if you're in a crowd and someone's bringing up something racist, or, of course they use the N word,
right,
to stand up and say something is huge. I would say I've been fortunate enough that I haven't really been around that. I worked in an environment once where one of the guys used the term faggot, and I was just like, do not use that in front of me. That is so derogatory.
yes,
And I
yes,
do think we need to correct people and stand up for that and say that that's not okay. Like that's
right,
off limits. Don't say that around me, and show the offensiveness of that, because it is
right,
offensive.
right,
And again, we wouldn't need to say Black Lives Matter if, people weren't throwing those things around there like, oh, that's just okay to say.
right, right. And for me to write that article and for me to even discuss this, um, it was at first I was ashamed and I was embarrassed.
Mm,
And because I cared what other Black people thought. Like,
yeah.
"Ooh, she thinks she's that better than anybody else," or, you know, like, "How dare her even admit that?" And I'm like, "No, because I'm sure I'm not the only person that has had grown up with my experiences." And I do believe, Marty, that people, a lot of times they watch too much TV. So they take a Black person and they put them in a box, and they think that we're all the same way. And I've had experiences where I've been around people where you could just tell that they probably have encountered a Black person maybe 3 times in their entire life. And so when they meet me, they just assume. I had someone ask me once, you know it must be really hard living in the hood. I i
A
was like,
natural assumption you grew up in the hood, right?
it was funny. You know what I did? I said, and I looked all around and I'm like, me. So, people need to know that not everyone has experienced the same thing. And sometimes people need to know that we're learning certain things together.
Yes.
And they shouldn't just think that every Black person in the world is alike.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. I had somebody I knew once, and I got furious that they said, don't we need our military to protect us from the Muslims. And I'm like, are you freaking serious? I was so furious about that. Like, you actually believe that? And I mean,
Right.
I just start go off the deep end about it. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You like, it's just buying what is said to you, instead of being like, take people individually. And,
Right.
the movie Gettysburg that came out years ago, there was a scene in there where these two, officer is talking to like his sergeant, and the white officer is saying, look, my mother always told us it's the divine spark, much like my friend from high school said, the god-given way you were born. We all have the divine spark in us. There is no
Yes.
difference. And then
Yes.
the sergeant, who is also white, said, I just believe as humans we have to take people individually. And I
Oh,
thought
love
both had a
that.
point, because to take people individually, to learn to do that. And some somebody is somebody can just be an asshole. They're
Yes.
just an asshole. It has nothing to do with the freaking color of their skin. They're
Right.
just an asshole.
Right.
And I think it's just important to know that. One last thing that I want to share. I grew up in an extremely white neighborhood, a Catholic neighborhood, and I will never forget, this Black woman moved into the neighborhood down the street from us with her two daughters. And me and a girlfriend went over and got to meet them. And I was pretty young. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember distinct things about, I do remember the mother's hesitancy of us coming over. And it
Yes.
makes so much sense to me now, because
Right.
God knows what she went through. And, I think about it now, she was just trying to make a better, find a like a less potentially violent
Right.
choice for her children, and yet she was met with violence in the white neighborhood. Because even though like my girlfriend and I went over there and we like were like welcoming them and getting to know the girls and getting to know that, and the mom got comfortable with us, I don't remember, because I was so young, but I don't remember how long they were there, but they weren't there very long. And I
Oh.
know that they got pushed out, because I
Hmm.
don't know everything my daughter went to CSU up in Fort Collins, Colorado,
Hmm.
and a few years back, and she said, "Oh my God, mom, they hung a noose
Uh,
outside the Black floor manager's window." I mean, 3 years ago.
huh.
And I'm like, if like imagine that as someone,
Mm.
like you look out your window and it's like, what?
I would be furious.
Yes.
I think
And
I would knock on every neighbor's door.
right.
Would be like livid.
Yeah. And probably terrified too,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
know that, wow. Again, it's like that, just because of how I look, nobody's bothering to get to know me. Nobody's bothering to have a conversation with me.
Yes.
There's another movie. I love movies, but Betrayed. It's an old movie, and it has Tom Berenger and Deborah Winger in it, and she's a FBI agent that's infiltrating in Southern Illinois, this sort of farming community, and it is amazing, Jeannine. You see how children are programmed. You can see in the children that they know something's not right here, like it's wrong, but they get fed enough hatred, and they have to, in order to survive in that circumstance,
Mm.
and it's based on a true story. And even the one guy's wife was like, this isn't right, and she got murdered. A white
Oh,
woman got murdered because she wasn't agreeing. And then you see how they're just brainwashed. Racism is brainwashing.
yes. Ooh, that's. I don't know. You know what? I never thought about it like that. It is, isn't it?
It's absolutely brainwashing. There's no child comes in like thinking that way. It's taught.
Right.
It's absolutely
Right.
taught.
Right. That is so
Yeah.
true. That is so
Yeah.
true.
And I mean, I love your My Black is Beautiful. I got to read the article, and it's in a book that's being
Yes.
published.
Yes. In fact, the book is Voices of the 21st Century, and it's volume 4. But it's a book with other amazing 49 women, and all the stories are just amazing in there. I have a beautiful lady who wrote a poem in the beginning of the book. It's just so timely. And another woman wrote, her name is Anita Russell. This is interesting. She wrote a story. I think her grandson is 19 months old, and she wrote it from his perspective.
Oh.
It was
Oh,
really cool.
wow.
It was really nice. So yeah, the book is amazing. I have my own custom copy. If you go to my website, www.JeannineRivers.com, you can purchase it.
I love it. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. There's one more thing, Marty, got to tell you. Okay,
Yes.
so I have this pin on. I don't know if you guys, oh yeah, you can see it.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, but there's a story behind this. I got this pin at a rummage sale when I was 15. When I was 15, I'm 57 years old now, but I always kept it. And I was I went back and looked for it. And you know what? When I bought this, I had no clue about loving
Mm,
being Black. So
wow.
now I always wear it.
Yeah, like talk about foreshadowing. Some part of your psyche must have known, that's
Right.
so
It was like,
true.
I remember I kept it. I don't know why I kept it, but I
Yeah.
did. So, yes. So, my Black is beautiful and I love being Black.
And I love that. And we do, I looked at the time, we have a couple more minutes and I would love to talk about this. So Jeannine, tell people what you do in your business. And
Well, I love because I've had so many mental health issues throughout my life, Marty, and I have overcome so much that I know what it's like to feel like you can't, like I can't get through this. I can't get past
mm,
it. It's like I keep bumping my head and I keep making the same mistakes over again because I don't like myself. When you don't like yourself and when you have poor self-esteem, you attract the same. And
mhm.
so I just been one day, when I finally grew up and got it together, so to speak, I was like, you know what? I need to help. I need to help women around the globe, including girls. I need to show them that I've climbed literally 13 mountains and came out on the other side. And if I can do it, you can do it too. So that's my passion. My passion is to just help women, like, let's get out of this darkness and let me show you my toolkit and what I use to get over certain things.
And,
And
and I,
it doesn't mean that I'm still not dealing with them.
oh,
I just have more of a foundation under me to do it.
I see. I love the way you say that because I always talk about I'm a flawed, fallible human being. And I had someone ask me once, can I help other people if I really don't have all my shit together? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't. If you think for 1 minute. And what I love, like when I was in corporate America for 35 years. And when I started this business, well, I didn't think this was going to be a business. I found tapping and I was like, I just want to deal with my own stuff. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, much like you, God, if
Mhm.
anybody has ever felt as lost as I have or confused, I want to help them. And I
Yes,
think that is how great businesses can be born is you have a desire to help lift other people up. You're going to get a
yes.
lot of dog experiences
That's
in my
okay.
room coming and
They're
going.
beautiful. They're
Yeah,
beautiful.
and I think that is so important because that's how many businesses are born. And anybody that's going through this certification, I would say certainly has a desire to help others.
Yes.
And you have a business that was born out of this desire to help people because of what you'd experienced yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And I think, when our hearts in that place, we're guided and directed to the next best steps. And
Right, right. And
yeah.
I have to tell you this, when I first met you and I heard what you did, I was like, what is that? I was like, I had never heard of it. I was so intrigued to learn. And so you do your spots on Facebook in your Facebook group. And I go and I've joined you some and I've done them. It works.
It does. It really does.
It's
Tapping really works.
amazing. It's amazing. It works. It works. So
It
thank you for
does.
introducing that to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So people can get to you at your website, JeannineRivers.com.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, anything else
Come
you
on
want to
over
share?
and visit. You'll hear my music, some of my music on there. Come on in. Come
I
on
love
over.
it. I love it. Yeah, that's great. How did you get your business started? Like, did you because I was like the beanie with the propeller on top. I was like, I don't even know what I don't know. Like I didn't even know. And I'm gonna pull the shade up now
Okay.
while you're talking.
You're gonna laugh at me. So my name of my business, I should have said, is Illuminate Your Dreams.
I love that.
I came up with that name 10 years ago. I don't know if this happens to you, but the greatest things happen to me in the middle of the night. I come up
Oh,
with,
right.
I'm, I'm like, so I came up with this name, Illuminate Your Dreams. And I kept it, and I formed my LLC and registered with the state, and then I never did anything with it. I wasn't ready to. I was still going through my things that I needed to go through, and it prepared me. And so, like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I was already speaking, and I was already coaching people, just didn't realize it. And I'm like, I can make this a business.
See, and I love that. And I've always found the steps get revealed to me. And
Right.
there's so much, marketing out there that just doesn't work for me. And to have
Right.
found my own way with it is huge. And obviously I've been guided to people that
Yes.
really help me see things in a new way is huge.
Right.
So
Right. So, see, we're changing the world.
yes,
We're women, we're changing it, and we're
yes.
doing it.
And
Mhm.
I so appreciate this conversation, Jeannine, and I'm so glad that you reached out and said, "How do you feel about this?" I'm like, "Let's do this,"
I'm
because
so happy that you did,
it's
because
so important.
I was like, I need to talk about this. So
Yes.
when is it a summit? When is all of this going to be? Tell us when we're going to be able to see it. Is the world going to be able to see it, or is just
Well,
this?
no, anyone that joins the tapping certification program gets to
Ah,
witness this.
okay,
And so, and I plan to run this every year. And then the other thing, this is all you and I are going to hop on once the certification starts the 29th. So people that are watching this now are already in the certification. So the
okay,
certification starts the 29th, and then I'm going to start filtering out the expert interviews. And then the other thing you and I need to hook up for is to do a live Q&A so that the people that are actually in the certification are there. But I will tell you, I actually, and this is all being recorded, I want to air this
I'm
outside
hoping
of the
you would.
certification because in fact, I think I'm going to, as I download this and put an intro and all that in it, I literally, and I'll send you a copy too, because
Okay.
this can be inside the certification, but I think it's way too important to not put out there. Like I'll put it on my Facebook page
Thank
and
you
send it to
so
you.
much. Thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank. It is important. It is very important. It's
Yeah.
very important for people to understand.
Yes.
So,
It's really, and like I said, even the simple, it sounds simple, but it's
right.
profound is, and my husband's like, Mart, like your website's all white people on it. And I'm like, oh my God, right? Like I
I
wasn't
love it.
trying, I wasn't trying to be ignorant, but he got woken up by some customers of his who were like, they're all white people on their site. So you just start to wake up to your own ignorance. And that's really important for us.
I'm gonna have to make sure. I'm doing thinking. I gotta on my music page. I gotta make sure some of my white musicians are on my picture. I never thought about it. I mean, it's true. It's like diversity, diversity.
Right, right. We all have voices that need to be
Right,
heard.
right, right.
Janine, I love you so much. Thanks for
I love
doing
you
this with
more.
me. And I will send this to you as well, and we'll just share it with the world.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Thank you so much, Marty, for giving me the honor.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank
Janine.
you. All
Yes.
right. I'll see you in the